4, almost 5 after the hour. Thank you, everybody, for attending the second Chat with Chuck. Hopefully you find these sessions informational. I'm very happy to share this information with everybody. I've been doing so in many different forums, whether it be radio shows or coffee clutches or just people on the street. But frankly, a lot of people just stop me. Matter of fact, I was at a different township meeting last Saturday, and I had 3 different couples approach me and ask a lot of questions and then thank us for what we're doing. So again, the format tonight will be typed in questions. So we're not allowing people to go audio for obvious reasons. If you could type in your question in the Q&A tab, which is on the very top toolbar of your screen, just type in Q&A, click the Q&A, type in if you want everybody to see the details of your question, the wording and everything, just type public before you type in your question. Please be concise in asking the question. If you could please also if it's a rant or something that's inflammatory, they probably won't be read. So if you do have a hard question to ask, please go ahead and ask those questions. Anything you want to ask, just word it so it's appropriate and respectful of everybody online. So if you could do that for me, I'd appreciate it. We will have discussions on multiple topics. I cannot answer details about any pending legal matters. It's highly inappropriate and unprofessional to do so, and that's not how I operate. So I can maybe give some gross generalities on some topics, but I will not talk about any details of outstanding legal topic. Again, that's completely inappropriate to do. If it's a proprietary information question, such as specific chemistry layouts of the product, obviously I can't share that kind of stuff. Specific procedural topics, I can't share that. If it's about safety control and everything, absolutely, yeah, we can share all that information. So please go ahead and start typing your question as you're doing so. I will also note that the intention is we will not answer the environmental questions until roughly 7:45 tonight. So the reason being, I have a special guest that I've invited. I'm hopeful that she can attend. She was a 20-year experienced doctorate in the field of battery research and a very highly respected professional in her field. So if you have specific questions about chemistry or environment, exposure, STSs, this type of thing, she is definitely the guru on those questions. If she's unable to attend because she just had a beautiful baby girl, and obviously we all know you think the bedtime is 7:30, but it might be a little bit later than that. So hopefully we will have a special guest. Okay. If the question, again, like I said, is worded with respect, we will respect the entire audience and the pursuit of knowledge, and we will answer those questions. So just a point of order before we begin, if I may ask everybody, I'm going to take maybe 5 seconds of silence. I don't know if people realize this is Police Officer Week, and tomorrow is Police Officer Memorial Day. So any police officer that's been injured or killed in line of duty is respected tomorrow. And having a son that is a police officer, I highly respect this day. So I'm going to give maybe 5 seconds of personal reflection time to thank those that protect us. Okay, so let's go ahead and get beginning. So obviously this is Chat with Chuck. Our intention is to share information. Beforehand, I will give a short introduction on some topics that are prepared earlier. And hopefully this will answer some of your questions before you even ask them. So again, for the new people joining in, please go in the Q&A section and type in your questions. One of the biggest questions I get is we sent out a letter about 2 weeks ago to roughly 17,000 households, and not just in the township area, but the entire community surrounding the facility. The reason we did that is obvious. People have seen flyers. You have seen people asking for money in flyers. You have seen fake newspapers that were sent out right before the recall election last October. And these things are just peppered with misinformation. So the goal was to bring accurate information backed up by data and fact. And that's why we're doing this and having this conversation. You've all probably received some of these communications some way. I just saw it was an emailed, it was posing as a survey from a certain congressman. And before you click the button to take the survey, it tells you about the evils of Goshen and why he disagrees with it. And now he wants your opinion after he just told you what your summary should be. So obviously we see these things, they're propaganda. When they're not backed up by data, that's purely called propaganda. So we tend to get caught up in some of these things sometimes and believing some of the keyboard cowboy comments that are posted on social media, which can be very destructive. And hopefully people see that for the form that it is, and it should be sharing pictures and sharing wonderful ideas, not sharing hatred. So we'll talk about that a little bit in the conclusion here too, but just please aware that the reason I sent that out, and yes, I sent that out. I know there's questions, concerns, because apparently I didn't sign it, but then again, none of your flyers you received were signed. This was sent from a brick and mortar address. That's one of the first times you've seen that. So Goshen is obviously located in Big Rapids for our office space downtown, and then the pending facility that we're building, doing a lot of work out there. So in that letter, I outlined some of the hoaxes that you've been exposed to. A couple of them were, let's just say, let's talk about first the 2,000 acre hoax. Somebody made the claim that we were trying to buy 2,000 acres, and they went to the EPA to stop us from purchasing 2,000 acres. And I wanted to show really quick the result from the FOIA request that I placed. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. This is the FOIA request result that I sent to EPA, asking everybody, asking EPA if they've ever heard of this issue up in Green Township. Have they ever heard of Goshen? Have they ever been exposed to us buying 2,000 acres? And did they ever step in and stop us from doing so? I've hidden some of the information here because it's personal contact information, but the box you see down the bottom, I just outlined. We have no records responsive to your request. So when I dispute these claims, such as we tried to buy a horse farm, well, that claim I can't specifically give data to because it's a negative. You can't prove a negative. Okay, I can't prove that I never did it because there's no documentation to refer to because it doesn't exist. In this case, it didn't exist, but I was able to go get information and proof. So this is the result of the FOIA request, and hopefully you all see now that that was clearly a hoax. It is not something that we should be believing in because none of it is true. It's all pathological issues. So things like that are the reason why I brought this letter to everybody's attention, sent it to your homes. Hopefully I didn't intrude in your private time, but I think people needed to know this. Was there an eagle's nest? No, absolutely not. If you like, I can show you the letter from the consulting agency that went and did the survey. And as I reported, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did an independent, unannounced visit to the property and came to the same conclusion. Recently, we just heard, this is a new hoax, and this one, I don't even know if it was a hoax. I think somebody made a supposition or conjecture that Goshen bought the Reed City Airport. When you hear these kinds of claims, some people immediately jump on it because they hope it to be true. They want to will it to be true, but it's not true. Okay. Whenever you hear this kind of claim, these types of claims, just ask yourself, does this make sense? Would Goshen want to buy a defunct airport when they're building a facility right next to an airport that is expanding and will be servicing all of our needs from that location? What's the reason why a company would go buy a defunct airport? No, we did not buy a Reed City Airport. We've never been in discussion about buying an airport. Okay, so these types of hoaxes and conjectures that you read, take them with a grain of salt. Just ask yourself, does this make sense? In the engineering field, we call that the giggle test. Does it pass the giggle test? When you think about it, does it make you chuckle? If you chuckled, it's probably not true. Okay, so would we buy 2,000 acres? No. Would we buy a horse farm that's not zoned industrial? That's clearly an agricultural zone? No. It makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, 2,000 acres. Do we want to spend hundreds of millions of dollars when all we needed is roughly 250 acres? It makes no business sense. So when you see these types of rumors, just discard them for what they are. I mean, if you're reading it on a Facebook post, it's probably not true. Let's just face it. That's the way the world is. Do a little research and find out for yourself if it's true. Or ask me, because I'll tell you the truth. Let's cast aside lies and rumors, and let's just stick to facts. Okay, there are some people that oppose this project, and that's perfectly fine. People have their own reasons and own opinions for why they think one thing or another. But I do urge you to stop listening to the fringe extremists. You know, we always have on the left side and the right side, you always have the very, very extremist people trying to control the other 95% of the population. Don't let them control you. Okay, think about what's real, what's good for the community, what's logical, what can be data driven and has some kind of support structure to the claim. Okay, so that kind of thing, before you believe it, ask questions, because most often those types of rumors are only designed to destroy and denigrate, not to build and benefit. And this community needs the latter badly. Okay, that's enough introduction. That's why I sent the letter. Yes, I sent the letter. No, I didn't sign it because it's not pertinent. Of course, we sent the letter. It had our logo on it. So with that, let's go ahead and open up the questions. John, hopefully you've got a few questions that are being asked, and we can go ahead and dig into this. So
thank you, Chuck.
First question, sir.
The first question was about the Reed City Airport, and I think you've addressed that. It's in the public comment section already. The question was, did Goshen ever attempt to purchase the Reed City Airport? Did you ever attempt to purchase the property?
We've never attempted to purchase an airport, nor have we attempted to purchase a horse farm. It's not true. There's simply no truth to it whatsoever. I can't prove it because it's a negative. You can't prove a negative because there's no documentation to prove otherwise. I can just tell you documentation doesn't exist, and there was never any phone call or any communication to either one of those property owners about buying their property. Not from Goshen.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next question is from Anonymous. What sort of guarantee does this community have that Goshen will not up and leave in 10, 15, 20 plus years, leaving massive infrastructure empty and dozens of new area residents without work?
Well, the guarantee is a written guarantee that's already been given to the state of Michigan. So when we went through and agreed to the terms and conditions with the state of Michigan, just like we did with Green Charter Township and our development agreement, just like we did with the Right Place, we committed to deliverables. Those deliverables include delivering a number of jobs and infrastructure and investment over a 30-year period. Okay, so if we do have to, for some reason, like you say, up and quit, pull up shop and leave, let's say it's 20 years into it, there's a portion of the incentive package we have to pay back. And it's bigger than people would think. It's not a linear depreciation year by year. It's actually weighted to the end. So they're really, the way they set up their agreements, a large portion of it is like in the last 10 years. So if we were to leave in the first 20 years, we got to pay back pretty much everything, right? Which is a fair amount of money, including the tax abatements, not just the initial SSRP or anything, including the tax abatements. Okay, so that's an important note. So if we were to, for some reason, see a business reason to leave, we would have a very hefty bill to pay. So that's a large incentive to not leave. Is there a guarantee? Nothing in life is guaranteed. I mean, come on, face it. But is there intention? Yeah. My vice principal in my high school, I used to get in trouble a lot. His words were, good intentions pave the road to hell. Yeah, we have the good intentions. Clearly, we have clawback provisions from the people that we have contracts with, and that is done so to make sure your good intentions are followed through with. So hopefully I answered that question.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Next question. Let's think about what's the worst case scenario. If Goshen were to leave in 15, 20 years, what does that leave? That leaves a 20-year-old building, which is not that old, of a very large infrastructure, and another company could come in pretty easily for rock bottom pricing to start another manufacturing facility. Worst case scenario, if everything goes to crap, we have a $2.5 billion building full of equipment that an American company can come in and utilize. So in my mind, that's the worst case scenario.
Thank you. Next question, Anonymous. When will Goshen be hiring more employees?
So yeah, thank you. We continue to work some of the topics like environmental law, PR, legal, that kind of stuff. A lot of environmental stuff as we're preparing to put in our permit submissions. We're doing so with the consulting companies. So we're utilizing Michigan-born, Michigan-based consulting companies for these things. The Goshen employees that we're hiring, we have another 3 people that are on deck. Right now, we are working through the finalizing those offers. So if anybody's enjoyed in the last week, we had, I'm going to say 55 or so people visit our office in Big Rapids. You got to meet our office manager. You got to meet a construction manager. I think, as a matter of fact, I don't think the HR manager was in there. Our director of finance was actually in Illinois at that time, so you couldn't meet him. And I was there. So we have a number of people already here. And we are on track to easily meet the commitment to the state, which is 2,350 people by the end of 2033. The hirings that are happening now are the leadership positions. I'll call them white collar, if you will, and not orange collar, but white collar. And these people are the ones that are going to start setting up the organization. And we are bringing in some other help. I'll just be blunt with you. Some people may have seen it. We had a couple of our Chinese friends here last week. 2 of them just happened to be Chinese origin, but they're American citizens. The other 2 were here to help us with setting up and continue our conversations with architectural engineering firms. So it doesn't make sense to hire a bunch of people until we have the architecture and engineering solidified and the permits submitted. At that point, we start to ramp up hiring considerably. I still have target by the end of the year, targeted 56 people. I hope to hit that target. It's in my deliverables of my yearly evaluation, performance evaluations. So clearly I need to hit that. But yeah, we're still looking at 56 people by the end of the year is targeted. Now, will that vary? I'm certain it will. And we're giving a priority to people within a 25-mile radius. So everybody we've hired so far, except for 1, was within 25-mile radius. The 1 person was outside that radius. And I'm very happy to report that as somebody that we were able to hire from Leprino when they had their layoffs and their change of function last January. So we were able to utilize one of their people as a pull ahead. And I have some other people that I spoke to during that job fair we like to have as a pull ahead.
Very good. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. Next question is from Jim Chapman, Green Charter Township resident. Question is, it's a little bit longer. Green Township is 2 months behind paying the city of Big Rapids their $280K sewer bill. They are 1.5 months behind paying the $110,000 contract for fire protection. Now I've learned that City Fire has not received Green Township's transfer of the 160K Goshen payment to train all our area firefighters. Can you confirm that Goshen issued a check to Green Township to train the firefighters in our region?
Well, that was a long-winded question, Jim, but you deserve an answer. You've done a lot of stuff for this community. So the payment of the 160,000, just to educate people, when you go through this type of incentive discussion and you have any kind of tax abatement, it's very typical for the company to volunteer, which we did volunteer, to help pay for fire and safety. Okay, because we do have the tax abatement, which are on other things, but we don't want to leave the community with improper fire and safety. So we paid our property tax bill in whole this year. We're paying it again next year, and we're not taking incentives yet. We're not having those property tax abatements appear until after buildings are built. Okay, so during those years of construction, we did negotiate with Mr. Chapman and the Green Township Board that ratified that development agreement, that we would pay $160,000 this year, and I think it's $170,000 next year. And that was geared towards training and equipment for anything that could be foreseen or unforeseen that has to do with the project. So that money was due to the township in March. I repeatedly asked for an invoice from the township. They refused to give me an invoice. So I tweaked our internal system and I got the payment executed on roughly April 10th, on or about April 10th, that timeframe. So we missed the March timeframe because the township board didn't want to participate or cooperate. So we went ahead and made the payment anyways. So the payment was confirmed to be wired by ACH wire on or about April 10th. Now, what they've done with that, I have no idea. I've looked at the budget summary, things of this nature. It's not listed anywhere. So I don't know what they did with that money. My contractual obligation is met. I don't know what they're doing with this city, but it sounds like they might owe the city some money. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't have any dialogue with them whatsoever, so I don't know what they're doing.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. Next question is an anonymous question. Here goes. You've made some donations around Mecosta County. You're giving away furniture. Are you using taxpayer dollars to try to buy off people? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, I've heard that claim too. No, it's illegal for me to transfer taxpayer dollars to you guys. So when we get the incentives, what we do is we receive an incentive based on an expenditure that's already made. So for example, as we hire an architectural engineering firm, let's say it's $20 million. Okay, after we execute that executable and we get something of value from that design effort, then we get a percentage as a rebate of money spent. So no, we're not taking taxpayer dollars and writing checks to citizens. That's called payola. That's not how this works. The whole idea of giving to the community is frankly my goal, right? I've maintained forever. I did this because I want my community to be bettered. And what better way I was able to talk my board into giving me a line item on my budget for community outreach. So yeah, we do make some donations. I was very happy that the furniture in the building we gave to companies like Cranhill, Manna Pantry, Wise, Habitat for Humanity took a ton of stuff, and we had roughly 55 people that came in. Were able to utilize some items this weekend. We've probably distributed, I would say, 85% of the stuff that was left behind by JCPenney. And just another note of that. Somebody asked me the question about a week ago. If it's, $5,000 at a drop in a bucket for a company like Goshen, why do you do this? Because it seems like it's disingenuous. Let me share a story. I had a very close friend of mine's father pass away. I choked up on that one. I knew this man quite well. He's a very good Christian man, somebody I highly respected. And he passed away. And one of the stories they told at his wake was this one. He and his wife, in their later years, were flying from somewhere back to Michigan. And on that flight, they had to sit on, aisle and window seats. The middle seat was open. And along come this mountain of a man coming down the aisleway there on the plane. And he's a big guy, tattoos, facial tattoos. I mean, things that would just scare the normal human being. And Mrs. said to Mr., I know you love to talk to people, but just keep your mouth shut on this one. Would you please don't piss this guy off? So, of course, the gentleman sits in a seat right between them. And immediately, Mr. turns and holds out his hand, shakes the guy's hand, and introduces himself and starts a conversation that lasted all the way to Detroit. Okay, during that conversation, my friend's father developed a bit of an affinity for this guy. Okay, so what you doing? He says, well, I'm heading to Michigan to go see my daughter that I haven't seen because I've been in prison. And I have a granddaughter I've never met. So I'm going to see my family. When they landed, my friend's father reached in his pocket and pulled out his money clip, handed the guy a substantial amount of money. He said, go buy your family a present and tell them that you missed them. So the guy said, thank you very much. And he walks away. And Mrs. turns to Mr. and said, Bob, you know that guy's going to spend it on drugs or alcohol. Why would you give him that money? And Bob's response was, what he does with this is on him. But in my heart, I did the right thing. And that's what I'm doing for the community. So, a little emotional on that one. Sorry about that. I missed the guy. He's a good guy. So next question. And by the way, we have more attendees. Please click on the Q&A section if you want to ask a question. Type in your question. If you want it to be publicly available for the recording afterwards, type the word public, and it will be included in the recording when we distribute this message. So please go ahead and ask your questions. So John, do we have another question?
Yes, we've got an anonymous question here. Here goes. I'm not asking you to talk directly about the lawsuit, but Supervisor Cruz has said that this issue is a David versus Goliath story. Isn't that the case?
Well, I'll tell you what I feel. I don't, obviously he said what he feels. I'll tell you what I feel. I think it is a David versus Goliath. I really do, because we started this as something that was passed by 3 different boards unanimously, started to move forward, and halfway through, some extremists on the far right side went and secured the assistance of the entire Republican National Committee. Okay, so the RNC is brought into this fight. There were rallies held. There was all kinds of things held. The amount of money that's been funneled through this and the amount of exposure, not just on a state level, but a national level, all came because of those people in that township. So yeah, I am David fighting Goliath. I absolutely agree with that. The things that we have to do and try to justify ourselves. It doesn't matter how many times I speak about a fact, like we already did a 3-year project with the DOE. As a matter of fact, my special guest, hopefully she can come, was the person responsible for executing that project. And we can maybe ask her a little bit more about that. We were already vetted by the DOE. We're already vetted by CFIUS. We've been in America for 10 years. Why is it now Goshen is now a scapegoat? Because of some people in this township that does not want this in their backyard. So yeah, we are definitely David fighting Goliath. I totally agree with that. Probably
All
not
right,
the
thank you,
answer you
Chuck.
expected.
Very good. We've got another anonymous question here. Does the new Green Township Planning Commission referendum affect the current process at all? Or are you grandfathered in by the county rules as in the beginning of this project?
I don't know of any grandfathering. If there is, I've never heard of it. So no, we have to follow the rules, no matter what country we establish in, no matter what state, what community, whatever. We have to follow the rules and follow the laws. The rules are being obviously drastically and rapidly changed here in this township. Do we have to abide by those at this time? Yes. Is there a coalition of, I've understood there's a coalition of people in the township that put together a very largely signed petition that was then rejected by the township so they could go forward with their activity after the voters already turned it down last November, which ironically, the new board rejected, as I understand it, allegedly rejected this petition. I never saw the petition, but I've been told about it. They rejected the petition because it was the wrong template, which is the exact same template that they used last year to put it on the ballot and the exact same template they used to recall the other people. So it is amazing how now they're rejecting the template because the Michigan Court of Appeals 4 days prior has said that there is a specific box that's not close enough to the signature line and they wanted it moved closer. As I understand it, every other township in the state of Michigan has honored the old template. The only township that has not is Green Township. So by the law, we have to follow what's happening at this time. Will those laws change? Will things change? I'm certain things. The one thing is constant is change. Does it inhibit our project? We already have backup plans for backup plans, so obviously they're trying to take the water source away. We already have backup plans. We're set for that. It's as far as driving on the roads and stuff, that's county road and that's controlled by state and county. So it's not a huge effect to us right now. But yeah, we're moving forward to make sure we're following the rules, just like we do in every country, every state, and every municipality where we go to. But yeah, we have backup plans. We'll be okay.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate that. Our next question is a public question, but it is anonymous. Could you discuss the extent to which the Goshen project will rely on Inflation Reduction Act incentives to build the facility? Are those incentives primarily 45 times production tax credits? Or do you expect to also access the 30D clean vehicle credit? Thank you.
That's a really informative question. Whoever did ask that question obviously looked up some of the stuff. To my knowledge, the IRA does not apply to the construction of this facility. I think the IRA would apply if we were to put in like solar panels, things of this nature. Just like, for example, there's another company called Nextier that's over on the east side of the state, who is a China link company who's been in the United States for many years. Matter of fact, Congressman Olinar made some trips over there and congratulated them on a job well done. I understand that they are putting in solar farms to support their plant energy needs, and they were counting on the IRA 45X as well. I understand that there's current legislation that I think is sponsored by Mr. Molinar to take that away from them. So how the 45X and the rest of the IRA applies to the whole industry. I've been in multiple different seminars to try to understand the verbiage and the wording, and even the lawyers are perplexed. It's really difficult to understand what applies to what. I saw it yesterday, a summary that was put out about when these different things get put in place. It's really between 2024 and 2027, where a lot of these things are put in place. To my knowledge, Goshen has not secured any IRA funds. To my knowledge, I don't think the Michigan plant construction is eligible for those funds. To my knowledge, I think our customers are, because they will now be bringing in material from a locally produced source, which would be Goshen, Michigan. And with that, then they don't have to pay the incoming tariffs. So it's very attractive to North American companies to buy the product from a locally produced source. And that's why President Trump started all this. He started the onshoring, which, as many things as people disagree with him, he absolutely was right. Okay, we should onshore our manufacturing. This is one step to get there, and that's why I started this project. Not only onshore it, but Michigan shore it, right? We got our own shores. We'd love to have some manufacturing back in the state. So now, to my knowledge, I don't know of any. Maybe somebody is working on it. I don't know about it. So I don't think at this time that my plant that I'm general manager for will benefit from IRA immediately.
All right, Chuck, I appreciate that. And actually, we have no other questions right now, so we could encourage people to answer any questions at all, ask any questions in the Q&A there. Chuck would be happy to answer those. But Chuck, one question that comes to my mind is that the plant itself, it's not a specifically EV vehicle battery plant. Is that correct? The battery components that would be built at the plant could be applied to other products as well. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. So currently our product mix is roughly 40% energy storage systems for renewable energies. And then the other 60% is EV, right? So what does that mean? For North America total finished goods out of our Illinois plant, that's the mix. For our plant, because we will be supplying both Goshen and outside third-party customers, that will be diverse. And I do know of some agreements underway. Some of them are car companies and some of them are not. So you will not be completely dependent on the electrical vehicle market, which we've all seen all kinds of reports of different earnings and that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, what's really going to happen in the automotive industry? Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think that the EVs are a slow start. If you have a pure EV vehicle, you have it. You've made a conscious decision to do that, right? You know that there's going to be charging stations that are continue to be going in the United States and these types of things. So the infrastructure might be a little inconvenient for a little while. Okay, and that's just the fact of the matter. When they started, first with vehicles, gas stations were unheard of. And then they said, well, let's put the gas tanks underground, and then that's how we're going to store the gas. So we don't have to have a tanker truck sitting there filling up cars. Well, the same thing's going to happen, right, in North America. Your gas stations are now, instead of just gas cans filled, underground, you're going to have banks of batteries. And those battery banks are going to be charged throughout the evening when demand is lower and cost is lower, and then redistributed during the day during usage times. You also see a lot of energy storage systems. So that's one application of energy storage. Another one is wind farms, solar farms. So when wind farms are spinning at night and people are in bed and not using electricity, they need to store that energy that was created overnight. And that's where you're going to see a large influx of these types of energy storage systems, or ESS systems. And that plays to us because ESS systems are pretty strictly LFP chemistry, so lithium iron phosphate chemistry. You guys remember what that is, because I put my finger in it and put it in my mouth. That's largely LFP. So the material we'll be making here is really set up nicely for a diverse portfolio of customers. And I'm sure somebody's going to ask a CCP question, so I'll just go ahead and hit that elephant in the room. People ask me about, the articles of incorporation in Goshen High Tech speak about, I'll say allegiance to the CCP, for lack of a better word. And yes, every company in China that is doing business in China must have these articles of inclusion. Okay, in 1996 and again in 2018, China legislators passed law, which, People's Republic of China, by the way, the CCP is not the government. Okay, the government's the PRC. The PRC passed laws that if you have at least 3 CCP members employed with your company, I don't care if you're a joint venture from overseas company or a homegrown company, you must have these similar articles. Okay, you have to give them the ability to assemble and have conversations. Some of them have CCP offices in their facilities, things of that nature. To my knowledge, Goshen does not have that, but they do exist. So, for example, there's a number of United States companies, 70,000 companies in the US. I don't know if people realize this. 20 years ago, I remember being at my last company. The goal was how fast can you get to China because it was growing so fast. So many American companies joint ventured into China, okay, with a number of different things, whether it be hotel companies or energy companies or car companies or, for example, BP Amoco, British Petroleum Amoco, was established in China. Their joint venture is with a state-owned organization called China National Petroleum Corporation. That's the JV. They go by Sinopec. So BP Amoco, which is also Standard Stations, is also aligned with Sinopec, which is the China equivalent of that. They have 368,000 employees, and their market cap is roughly $101 billion. And they're ranked 149th worldwide for the size of company. BP Amoco, okay? If anybody's ever visited, by extension, okay, so people say that people are labeling us CCP Goshen because we follow the law in that country and we have our articles of association. Amoco's got the same thing. Do you know there's an Amoco station right here in Big Rapids run by a family named the Currys? Okay, so by extension, if I wanted to be that kind of person, I could say CCP Curry because their company directly does business with China entities. But that's such a stretch of the imagination. No sane person would make that leap. Okay, so am I going to walk up to Pat and Penny Curry and say, you're CCP controlled? No. Why? Because it's ridiculous. Okay, they run a company with a franchise. It just so happens that company does business in other countries, and they follow the laws in other countries just like every other company does. That's what Goshen Inc. does. Okay, so when you look at, are there articles somewhere else in China? Yes, there are. Are they in our office in Argentina? No, they're not. Are they in Germany? No, they're not. Are they in North America, which has been in existence in North America for 10 years? No, they're not. Okay, so to draw that correlation is incredibly reckless and it does not belong. If we wanted to draw that same correlation, we would be calling CCP Curry. I mean, let's just face the fact. But that is a mistake. You don't do that because it's incorrect and you're just creating strife where it doesn't belong. So just everybody understand, yeah, there's rules and laws you have to follow in every country. It doesn't mean that you bring those rules or laws over international borders or over the ocean in this case, because it doesn't exist. It's a ludicrous idea. So we have been joined with my friend Jennifer Hoffman, Dr. Hoffman. Thank you so much for joining us, Jennifer. Jennifer is a senior research scientist at our facility in Independence, Ohio. Somebody may recognize her. She was up here last summer to help with the first responder training, which they do a lot of work with down in our location in Ohio, because they don't just work with cathode material, which is simple. It's lithium carbonate, iron phosphate, cellulose, and a little bit of graphite. They work with all the other stuff. So all of the stuff that goes into the electrolyte and everything, which is a secret sauce. So, that's really what gets the battery going. So she has a wealth of knowledge on chemistry or environmental topics. If anybody's got a question about environmental aspects of this material, if it's a spill, how does it contain, safety data sheet, how do you go about it? Please go ahead and ask the question. So John, assuming there's still no more questions posted,
We do
I'm
have
going to go ahead
some
and ask Jennifer
questions.
the first.
And let me look through
Uh,
them right now. We do have quite a few now, and anything
Okay.
environmentally related. And
And Jennifer had her first Mother Day this weekend. Congratulations, Jennifer.
Thank you very much.
here, this is a question here that is somewhat related to the environment. It is an anonymous question, but here goes. My understanding is that LFP batteries benefit from not using some critical minerals like nickel, manganese, or cobalt. Instead, LFP batteries use iron phosphate. Could you offer any insights where the iron phosphate is sourced? Is the production of iron phosphate environmentally sustainable?
Sure. So just to introduce myself quickly to everybody here, I am on the R&D side of things, but I have had the opportunity to do some plant visits and be involved with a lot of different materials. But most of what I have done has been on the R&D scale. What I can tell you in terms of the manufacturing of the iron phosphate is there are a lot of environmental benefits to this. It's an abundant source. Everyone knows about iron. It's readily available. So you can have a lot more options on how to responsibly source this. One of the big things that you'll hear about when you're working with any sort of lithium ion battery is cobalt. A lot of cathode materials want to use cobalt. This is very expensive. It requires a lot of really dangerous mining, a lot of which have some ethic issues associated with it, and we can avoid all of that by using iron phosphate. So because of how abundant it is and how easy it is to source, it is much easier to extract this, and you don't have to have these dangerous mines or anything like that. It's very readily available, very easy to access. We can do that in areas that don't have conflict that other metals may be associated with it. It's not a finite source, so we're not worried about it running out anytime soon either. And it's also very easily recyclable. So all of these things make using iron phosphate a really good option for cathode material. Now, in terms of the actual process, I'm not involved with that, so I'm not going to pretend to necessarily know that, but I can assure you that compared to a lot of the other metals that go into other types of materials that we are not working with, it's a very good option.
I don't thank you,
So there
Dr.
is some,
Hoffman.
let me just add a little bit to that. So Jennifer, obviously there's a lot of research going to LMFP. Could you maybe speak about the M factor on that just a little bit? Because that is a possibility to come into this facility.
Sure. And once again, so the M in LMFP is just adding in some manganese. Manganese can offer some performance benefits, but it's still very stable. Again, kind of referencing the cobalt thing, cobalt can give you some great driving range, let's call it, but it's going to have more hazards associated. It's a much harder to get. Whereas again, manganese is a common element in everyday soils and things like that. So again, we're really looking at materials that can be easily sourced, are readily available, very easy to recycle, and we aren't tied down to working in areas that we don't want to be in. So that's the benefit of adding in some of the manganese is it's still a very easily accessible element, still very safe, but it will give us a little bit of a boost in your driving range. So if we were to go that route, it stays in the safe zone that we want to stay in, which is why we would potentially be interested in that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hey, John.
Dr.
Any
Hoffman,
more?
could you talk a little bit about the three main components that would be used in the facility and maybe some information on those SDS sheets and the aspects, the safety aspects of those three main components?
Sure. So anyone that's looked at an SDS sheet, sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. And that's completely understandable. There's a whole lot of sections and a whole lot of language. What I would draw your attention to first is what we call GHS labels. It's for a globally harmonized system, and it's what anyone that works in any industry that deals with chemicals uses to communicate. So anyone that's maybe taken a chemistry course in your life, whether it's in middle school or college, you know that naming things can sometimes get a little tricky. This whole system is designed to make it very transparent across industries, across languages. If there is a picture, that means that it has been associated with a hazard class. Any chemist or person in manufacturing can look at these GHS labels and know if something is classified as a hazard. If you look at LFP's SDS, there is no GHS label because it is not hazardous. There is no shipping hazard label because it's not a hazardous material. It's completely safe. So that's a really good way to first reference an SDS. And our final product would not have any associated hazard classes. It's not labeled as an irritant. It's not soluble in water, so it's not going to mix with anything. It's going to be very easy to keep it maintained, very easy to work with. Another reason that manufacturing with this material is so ideal. In terms of the things we use to make the LFP, the final product, you're looking at lithium carbonate. Now, lithium carbonate does have a little picture with the GHS label because it can, at certain levels, irritate your eyes or cause some skin irritation. All of that is very low level. So reading a little bit more into the SDS, once you have a pictogram, once you have a little GHS picture, there's classifications within that. And lithium carbonate is a very low class. That means that with very extensive protocols, no one has to even worry about it. You have engineering controls to include ventilation, proper packaging. There's potentially, if anyone were to ever request it, you can have medical monitoring, which in this case, if you read the SDS, is not even recommended because the hazard class is so low. So really, that's an ideal substance to work with right off the bat because it's readily available, its hazard class is extremely low, and we can very easily, with a proper chemical hygiene plan, which is mandatory anyway. Any site that has any chemical will have that. And Goshen definitely has experience with that. We operate with a chemical hygiene plan at our site. So all of this is very easy to work with. And then on the flip side of that, the other material would be the iron phosphate. And this has no hazard class. It's completely safe. There's no shipping concerns. There's no extra protocols that need to be in place, of course, because we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable, not just is comfortable with the material. Protocols will always be in place. You can't ever be too safe. But the reality is we're working with some of the safest materials that is possible in this Michigan location. When you work with some of the other components in batteries, sometimes you have to be a little bit more involved with the safety aspects, but for the materials going into LFP and cathode, very safe processing, very straightforward. Doesn't have to be involved with any solvents or water streams whatsoever. You can do the process completely dry. You just mix it at high temperatures and it will do something what we call sintering. And that just means it basically melts together and becomes a happy little particle. And from there, it's easy to work with. So, there's a lot of wording involved when it comes to making materials for lithium batteries, and some are much more complex than others, but this is not one of those complex ones.
I like the happy little particle. So as she said, the water is not necessary. You can process this stuff dry, but we do process water. It's a carrying medium. And then throughout that process, after the grinding stations and things of that nature, before it goes to sintering, obviously it has to be dry. So it goes in what's called a flash dryer. It just goes in a very hot cistern and the water steams out and the material falls down. Then that material is further processed. It's all a closed loop system, all in containment. And then that material really, when you enter into the process in the beginning, it doesn't get touched by human hands ever again, literally. When it gets packed out, it goes into 500 kilo super sacks, which are hermetically sealed in a nitrogen rich environment. People can't be in there. They can't breathe. Okay. So We do that on purpose because if the oxygen comes in contact with the finished goods, it degrades it. It doesn't render it completely inert, but it degrades the performance availability. So yeah, the processing, as I've been saying in a very layman's term, engineering versus PhD, is it's non-toxic and it's not water soluble and it's not flammable. So you just heard it from PhD's mouth, who told me not to consume too much of it, but if I were to put a little in my mouth, I'd be just fine.
We are very confident in the safety. We, by training, don't encourage consuming material, but we also know that the material is very safe. So I felt very confident that Chuck would be more than okay.
Let me just ask a silly question. If that would have been toxic, is there some kind of antidote or chemical that I could have put in the water that I drank afterwards to counteract the effect? It sounds like a silly
So
question
that's a
because it
very, because it's not actually harmful, that's a difficult question because it would depend on the mode of toxicity. So one of the things that when you talk about something like this is the word hazard or the word toxic, when you're on the chemical side of things, is very broad and doesn't actually mean anything. We have direct toxicity definitions and classifications. And if this material were to fall into one of those classifications, there would be very specific directions on how you address consumption, how you address if it came in contact with your skin. There would be very specific instructions on how you handle any negative interaction that could possibly happen. Since this material doesn't have that, I can't really advise what we would do because there's nothing to do. But for example, if you consumed something and it was something that we didn't want in your system, but we knew was safe to pump out, then we would give you something to induce vomiting. If it's something that just needed to be neutralized, we may just encourage you to drink water. So absolutely, if there ever was a hazard that was associated with the material, when the hazard is identified when doing the evaluation for safety, the recommended measures to correct it would be given. Same thing would happen in evidence of a spill or if there was ever a fire, if something was flammable. Anytime there's any sort of hazard associated with any material, the SDS and the team will be instructed on how to handle it. And that will also be written in an emergency response plan that every site will have. So that way anyone there knows how to handle any sort of situation that may come up. And we also work with, at least at our site, since we have some very hazardous materials working in R&D, we actually have a third-party company that's available 24/7 that we can call, and they will walk you through anything if there's some sort of exposure to a harmful material.
So if this material goes into a spill, cleanup is simply sweeping up the material. Is that correct?
Yes, LFP does not mix with water. It is insoluble, so it will stay completely separate, and it will we call it diking. So you'll create basically a barrier around where the spill occurred, and then you'll very easily sweep it out, and there won't be any issues. It's really ideal in that way. There's nothing in the process that would cause it to enter any environment situations, but there's no risk involved in terms of cleanup. It would be very straightforward, very easy. And again, that would all be outlined in SDS or any emergency response plan. So even though the likelihood would be very low, everybody would be ready for it.
So I'm going to let other people ask a question, I swear to God, but I got one more for you. Dr. Hoffman, if the spill were to have somehow been mishandled and gotten into a waterway, what is the effect if it's in a stream or a river?
If LFP powder got into a waterway, a stream, or a river, again, it would stay completely separated. So there wouldn't be any real risk to any plant life or anything like that. Again, it would be pretty easy to clean up. In terms of aquatic life, it does not have a ecological hazard rating. So that is one of the GHS classifications that I talked about. If it was hazardous to fish, algae, invertebrates, it would be labeled as such, and it is not. So the only way that it would possibly cause damage to any aquatic life or plants or anything like that is if you left it there in like metric ton quantities, didn't do anything with it, and then maybe one of them decided a fish rolled around in it and ate it a bunch. I mean, it would be the equivalent of if you put too much toothpaste in the water. Too much of anything probably isn't good, but it would take so much and so long to ever cause any issue that the likelihood is close to none.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll turn it back over to the citizenry. Sorry, I kept on asking questions, but these are the ones that people have asked me. I have not asked Dr. Hoffman these questions before, so you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Okay,
Chuck,
turn it back over to you,
Dr.
John.
Hoffman, there are no other environmentally related questions. So there
Okay,
are no
well,
other questions as far as related to the environment.
Well,
So,
I'm happy to help. Thank
Are
you
there any
for
other-
the opportunity to speak.
Okay, well, thanks for jumping on with us, Dr. Hoffman. I really appreciate it. Obviously, hearing from somebody that studied this their entire life and actually works in the industry their entire life knows what they're talking about. So thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. To everybody in
Absolutely.
Independence, I said
I'm
hi.
happy to share my experience with Michigan, and I hope I can help calm some fears because there really is nothing to worry about, and I'm happy to share that message. So it's good to see you, Chuck. Miss you.
All right.
It's been a little while since we've gotten to talk, but good to
It's
see
been a
you,
long
and
time. Yeah.
hopefully
Okay.
I'll get to run into you again soon.
Thank you so much. Look forward to it. Okay. Thank you,
Yep.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So if there's no other questions, I guess maybe I'll just maybe close with a quick summary, if I may. First of all, thank you all for joining. When we scheduled this, the target was to make sure we didn't give an 18-hour notice and it wasn't at 2 o'clock in the afternoon so people could attend it. What I didn't realize is it coincided apparently with the Green Township Board meeting. I completely brain farted on that. I did not realize that was going on. I personally have attended many of those to try to make myself available to answer any questions. I've never been asked a single question from anybody. I have been screamed at through sentence fragments and things of that nature, but I've never had a question. So I decided that there's no value in me to attend those meetings any longer. We already know what's going on. So I apologize that those two meetings collided. I should have looked at the calendar and I should have known that before I scheduled this. So thank you for that. Next, I'd like to wish my wife Tracy happy birthday. It's her birthday today. I won't say the number, but she's a large reason why we're at where we're today, and I am where I'm at today. So thank you so much to my lovely wife. Just to leave you with the following message. I want to put a plea out to everybody. We have seen so much social media and so many radio shows and things of this nature that are 100% designed to irritate and maliciously spread information. And whether it's on one side or the other, no go or pro go, I'm asking people, we got to stop this. It's killing our community. We are now internationally viewed on this topic. So obviously the no-goes will do what they want. I can't affect them. Every time I ask them to use data and so on, they ramp up their message. But what I'm asking the pro-goes to do is just stop and think. What you're doing now, is that an email you would send to your mother? Okay. So I understand you're tired of getting picked on. I understand that the attacks are egregious, and I understand that your first instinct is to fight back. So is mine. My first instinct is always to fight back. Anybody that knows me says, I don't believe you're sitting there taking this truck, but you got to fight those instincts. You got to do what's right for the community and what's right for humanity. Okay. And that means is no matter what an evildoer does to you, if you repeat the same thing back to them, I was shared a little limerick. don't ever wrestle with a pig, because at the end of the day, you're covered in pig crap and everybody forgets who the pig is. Okay. So don't get into the fight. Nobody benefits from it. So please continue to post good, positive events, good data-driven discussions, things of this nature. I don't get onto Facebook and read all this stuff. Frankly, I have other things to do in my life. But I just ask everybody, the good people in the community, just stop and think about what you're about to say and what you're about to do, and let's make our community a beacon for good and start to heal rather than a consistent fight. The fight will happen in the courts. It doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen on Facebook. So a little restraint, if you would, please. I think you'll feel a lot better about it if you do. You're still going to get angry when you get called names and things of that nature, but you're an adult. You're a big person. Put on your big girl pants, your big boy pants, whatever. And sometimes you just got to take it. And knowing that around the corner, you're going to do something that's really good for the community. Maybe not you, maybe you'll never work at this facility, but your children and grandchildren will have an opportunity to work in this, not just our facility, but the industry itself. Obviously, we're going to have a growth pattern in this area. And wouldn't it be nice if people can graduate fair and stay in the community? Wouldn't it be nice people's children can stay in the community and get a job? I've talked to so many people that approach me and ask me, please don't give up the fight. Please, I see what they're doing to you in the media. Please don't give up. My family's counting on you. So I'm saying that also to you. Everybody's counting on us all. We need to do the right thing, make the right decisions, and act appropriately. So thank you so much for your attention. Let's show the world that we're a community that deserves opportunity, not ridicule. Okay, because right now we're the latter. We're not just a group of extremists. We're a bunch of people trying to do what's right for our community. So thank you for joining, and thank you for being a part of this. We'll try not to let anybody down. If there's other requests for data or information, more than happy. Go ahead and type in another question if you want it asked later on. I'm more than happy to answer these later on. We recorded this broadcast, so we will share this with the appropriate media outlets and other locations such as Facebook or whatever. I'm sure somebody will post it. So thanks again for joining. Really appreciate it. And now I'm going to go finish my dinner with my wife on her birthday. Okay. So thanks again, and God bless.